I think maybe Mr. Beast, because he has a community, may not go to Paramount Pictures to make the Mr. Beast movie, or maybe even not even Netflix.
YouTuber MrBeast spends $4 million a month to make, what, 3 or 4 YouTube videos? What do you think about that?
Well, I think if the market watches it and it works for him, I think that's great. I mean, I think, you know, if he gets a return on his investment, if the ROI makes sense, Mazel tov. I think that's amazing. And I am presuming that, you know, if you look at his numbers and the subscribers, it seems like the market is bearing out his approach. And so I think it's great. I mean, you know, again, with any budget, right? I mean, with the, you know, Game of Thrones spending $10 million for one episode of TV, for the Lord of the Rings series spending, you know, $20 million for one episode of television, or him spending $4 million for a YouTube video. If that creates a positive ROI and creates something that people enjoy and the audience responds to, I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. I don't think it's a necessity for everybody. I think the trap is to think well, that means I have to spend $4 million on an episode or on a YouTube video, or if I don't spend $4 million, then I can't do a good YouTube series. Or I think people get in their head about that stuff and try to create rules and things like that. But his brand is built around these super complicated, expensive stunts and crazy things that he does. And I think, you know, that works for him. And obviously he gets results from that. And so, you know, I don't want to criticize that. I think it's great. And it's working, you know, but at the same time, I think other people can do a very successful YouTube series for $0. I don't think it sets a bright line rule for everybody to follow, but for him, he's making it work for sure.
Have you studied MrBeast at all? Have you sort of done a deep dive with some of his videos?
Sure. Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm a fan. I'm not one of his fans that subscribe to his channel and watch all his stuff, but definitely aware of all the different things that he has done and how he's grown his brand and diversified his brand in a really interesting way. And the philanthropy he's done. He does a lot of really cool philanthropic initiatives. So definitely aware and appreciative of his approach for sure.
What do you think other creators can learn from his success?
I think what creators can learn from the success of Mr. Beast is use the platform that you have in front of you. Use the platform that is there and for free, that you don't have to wait for CBS to give you a TV deal to be able to start building your audience. And this is a refrain that I always go back to, is use the tools that you have, attack the market with what you have. And if your stuff is good enough, then you're going to start building that audience out. And so that's what I love about Mr. Beast is he just used what was in front of him, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitch, whether it's TikTok, whatever it is, use the tools that you have. Also, you look at volume. I think, you know, Mr. Beast, he produces a lot of content, and it's not just one thing every now and then. Like it's his big stunt prank things, are windowed, but there's a lot of content that comes through of the variety of his channels, because he doesn't just have one channel; he has multiple channels, right? And so basically, he's his own network, if you look at it in the traditional sense. And so, volume of content in a commoditized market is a strategy that's super, super important. If you only do one thing every now and then in a commoditized market, there's so much new content that hits the market, your one thing just disappears because there's too much stuff that sort of buries it, right? So you have to be able to take a volume-based strategy to be able to compete in a commoditized market. And that's what MrBeast is doing. Lots of content on the platforms that are available to him, that the platforms that he's on. And what I like about him is diversification. Is he has different channels and different types of things. He tries different formats. It's not just a one-trick pony. He's willing to try new and different things on different platforms, in different styles and different formats and genres, and really diversify the brand. And if you look at if you read Warren Buffett or listen to Warren Buffett, which I don't know if Mr. Beast listened to Warren Buffett or not, but Warren Buffett says he never suggests that investors invest into companies that operate in commoditized markets, because it's just too difficult for them to compete unless they have the right strategy of competing in the commoditized market, which he says is creating a branded ecosystem based on diversification and volume and synergy. Is your stuff tied together? Are you creating lots of stuff? And are you diversifying the type of stuff that you're creating and the platforms that you're creating on? And if you look at what MrBeast is doing, he's really doing a great job of the synergy of volume and diversification. And so I think that's why he's able to compete in the commoditized market, which is, that's the big takeaway that as a filmmaker for me, is that's what I learned from him. He's not waiting on anybody to give him permission to create his stuff. And now that he's created it himself on this platform, guess what? He owns the brand. Nobody else owns his brand. And if CBS or ABC or Amazon or Netflix or whoever decides to come and say, hey, we want to do a whole, MrBeast movie or a MrBeast cartoon or a MrBeast series, he's now in a leveraged position to where he will decide how that deal will play out, because he owns his own brand. You look what happened with Joe Rogan and Spotify. He did a $500 million deal with Spotify for his podcast, because he owned his podcast, because he launched his podcast before getting involved with Spotify and grew his own audience. And that's what I love about MrBeast, is MrBeast owns this brand. It's his. He doesn't have any of these studios or networks divvying up the rights or controlling them or dictating the content. Like, he's in the driver's seat of his brand, which as a creator, I am always going to root for, and I'm impressed by, and so that I'm a fan of that, and that's why I think filmmakers can learn from him as well. Is own your brand, use the tools that you have in front of you, diversify, and attack the market with volume. He's doing all those things, and it's working for him. It's playing out in the market.
What do you think about MrBeast purchasing 100 acres of land and building a $10 million studio? He's 23.
I think it's amazing. I mean, I think if you look at what Tyler Perry did, if you look at what Robert Rodriguez what he did, I mean, he's following in those footsteps as a YouTuber, which is amazing. And the more you could disintermediate other people that control your stuff and control your content, or control the way you produce the content, or how you produce the content, when you produce the content, where you produce the content, the more that you can just own your own brand in every way, that's always going to be better, right? And it's an asset. I mean, it's he's now a real estate magnet, right? Like, it's the fact that, I mean, that's valuable, that's financially valuable, but the fact that he's creating his own studios it just shows nobody's going to tell him how to create, when to create, and why to create. So if you're using YouTube studios, there's strings attached. If you use, as well there should be, because it's YouTube studios, right? If somebody's coming into my studio or your studio, of course you're going to tell me how I should act. I should tell you how you should act, and there's always going to be strings attached, and which means ultimately you don't really own your stuff. I mean, it's like moving into a neighborhood with a really aggressive HOA. Right? The fact that, if you can't let your lawn grow more than 6 inches high, else you start getting fines. Do you really own your lawn at that point? I mean, there's like an interesting, for me, I don't like that. I don't like people telling me when I need to cut my grass, or how quickly I need to remove my trash cans from the curb before I get the ticket. I don't like that, right? I feel like these are my trash cans. This is my lawn. I should be able to do with what I want, right? I feel like that's the American way. And so I love the fact that an independent creator doesn't have to go to some giant conglomerate to be able to make the stuff. And this is a refrain that I always go back to, is how does the filmmaker not wait for permission from a giant multi-billion-dollar international conglomerate to say you can create the stuff that's in your heart. How do you just go ahead and do it yourself? And by creating his own production facilities, just like Tyler Perry, just like Robert Rodriguez, just like M. Night Shyamalan, just like any of these independent creators that go and do their own thing, he's doing that, and he's gonna have his destiny in his own hands. That doesn't preclude him from working with any of these other people, but it just puts him in more of a leveraged position because he just has more ownership over everything. Literally has more ownership over the whole thing.
We think it's only a matter of time before MrBeast will make a movie and it'll gross $100 million plus.
Sure.
What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, I'm certain of it. I think he will be able to continue to grow the brand to the point to where if there's demand for a feature film or for something like that, or even a TV series, of course. I mean, you look at another YouTube breakout, The Hot Ones, which was an interview show on YouTube that was wildly popular. And it was a very basic concept where this guy, he interviews a famous person, and they eat hot wings as they interview, and the hot wings get hotter as they go. Right? Super clever concept, right? That just, that slowly built a very massive audience, that 100 million people subscribe to the channel. And eventually, then he gets his own real reality show and own real, on actual TV. He now has an interview show, and he gets called up to the major leagues because that's usually the way it goes. But he owns the brand, and he established it first. So that typically is the path that brands go in. Now, does that necessarily mean that he'll have to do it? No, I think obviously, I don't think he would need to do it for any financial benefit necessarily. I don't think at this point he's super motivated by money because he's been very financially successful, which I think is a good thing. So I think MrBeast will look at the options of, I don't have to do it for money. So the reasons I'll do it are the reasons that will help grow the brand, feed the fan base in the right organic way that makes sense for the brand. Where people, I think, where brands get off off track is when they do it for a money grab, and it's not coherent to the brand, and it doesn't feel like it's contextual in a way that adds value to the fan base. It just feels like a sellout payday. Right? And sometimes it can feel like that. But I think with MrBeast taking ownership of the brand in the way that he's done, and been able to amass the serious wealth that he's been able to amass with the brand, that the motivation won't be money, it will be something else. And it doesn't mean it's going to be great. This doesn't mean it's going to work. But I do think he'll probably follow that path. You look at something, a board game, that was created called Throw Burrito, is an exploding kittens, and there's a company that created these indie board games on Kickstarter, and they got to be super popular, and now they're being turned into cartoons and and TV shows and movies and things like that, because that's the way of the entertainment industry works, right? Is eventually you get that big break for the big platforms. I think MrBeast will do something non-traditional. I think maybe MrBeast, because he has a community, may not go to Paramount Pictures to make the MrBeast movie, or maybe even not even Netflix. I think maybe MrBeast does something very non-traditional, like launching a movie as an NFT on the blockchain, and pulling the community in participation of the movie through the NFT, so they could actually now participate as equity partners in the exploitation of the film, and try something different, because there's no downside for him to try that. And there's no reason he has to go to traditional Hollywood. I think, just the fact that he's been so new media with everything, and so outside the quote unquote system of Hollywood, I would guess that before he would go to a Universal Pictures or Paramount Pictures or Disney or somebody like that, or Nickelodeon, I think he would explore something non-traditional, like launching it on the blockchain, which I think would be great, because the thing that makes NFTs work is community. Having an established community that can jump in and purchase the NFT, purchase the tokens, that then monetizes the product, the movie or whatever it is, monetizes the whole project, and then gives them that profit participation and a stake in the actual brand. Where NFTs fail is a lack of community. Is they launch the NFT and there's nobody there to buy them because they haven't built community first. The NFTs that are really working are the ones that have community first, then launch the NFT. And so the fact that MrBeast has amassed so many subscribers, amassed this huge community, I would be shocked if he didn't explore something like an NFT to be able to launch a series or launch a movie. And you're already seeing creators kind of moving into that, so it's not completely like untested waters. But I would guess that there would be some sort of willingness to do something non-traditional and outside the system as a way to create that movie or create that TV show.